Hello, and welcome to Living with Intent. In this episode, I'd like to talk to you about cancer, give you a different perspective on cancer, some new research. By new, it's not necessarily yesterday, but has been around for, I think, since about 2012, 2013. But as the nature of these things are, it could take tens of years or 50 years for something to become mainstream. But along with that new research that has been published, there's some other research that I've been looking at that has given me a different perspective on cancer, and that's really what I want to talk about. Before we go down that path, I want you to sort of think about our species, the Homo species, and how long we've been on this planet, and that we made it all this time without our help, as in spite of ourselves. We made it through all the trials and trepidations that early Homo species would have gone through. What I'm getting at is this: if you change your perspective to another angle, which is what if what happens to our body, as in what our body does in reaction to something, is not the problem, but is the cure. For example, you get a headache, so you want to take a pill to get the headache down. But maybe we should be stopping and asking the question, why do we have a headache? Is the body stupid to give us a headache? Or maybe is it trying to tell us something? Or maybe it just knows what to do and it's doing what it needs to do to counter some other problem. High blood pressure. We probably take a pill to reduce the blood pressure because we are seeing the high blood pressure as the problem. Maybe we should ask this question: one, the body's not stupid to go raise the blood pressure then kill you. That's really not its intention. Its intention is to survive. So it's doing something so that it can survive, so that it can surpass or circumvent a problem. So is high blood pressure the problem? And that'll be another video. But what I'm getting at is we have a lot of pride in our brains, in our understanding, in science, but we seem to forget that this body has been around way longer than our intelligence or our understanding of new science, medical and such. And maybe we should be thinking about things from that perspective. So this video I'm hoping will sort of show you things from the other perspective, and maybe it'll make sense to you. Now, this is not like my invention. This is not my idea. Well, I guess what I'm saying is this other research that I've been studying from years ago allows me to see things from this perspective that I've been explaining, which is maybe the body knows better. And maybe what we think is the problem is actually not a problem. All right. For many years, cancer has been looked at as a genetic disorder. So basically, it was, if your parents had it or somebody in the family had it, you would likely get it. And this was pretty common amongst women who had breast cancer, right? The moment the mother has breast cancer, all the daughters start to panic. I know a few of them who've gone through that process. Or, if somebody in the family has cancer, then the children, male or female, will start to panic because they think it's genetic. Now, since about 2013, 2014 or so, and some research done by Thomas Seyfried. So Seyfried is spelled as Seyfried, Seyfried. Did some research on cancer, and essentially you can go buy his book. It's a very medical book. It's not for the layperson. But in that book he explains certain ideas. I'm just going to kind of give you the distilled version of that. And it all starts from insulin resistance. If you don't understand insulin resistance, I've made a video called insulin resistance. Please go and watch that, because this video, I assume you understand insulin resistance, so I can take it from that point forward. If you remember in that video, I said insulin resistance is the beginning of the end. The ends are many. I'm not trying to make light of the situation in regards to cancer. I understand it's a terminal disease. You probably either you're suffering from it, or people who are suffering from it, or people who die from it. But it's important to understand what I'm saying, the message I'm really trying to give you here, or the information I'm trying to give you here, so you can use that information either for yourselves or people you know and love, so that they don't go through the same standard treatments, and if they do, at least they go into it with a certain idea or knowledge. So insulin resistance, if you kind of extrapolate insulin resistance, you will understand that insulin resistance basically implies your body is starving. Why? Because you're eating carbs, your cells are insulin resistant, they can't uptake the sugar, the glucose for energy without insulin, but they're insulin resistant, so that the excess energy that's in the bloodstream, all the glucose, gets converted to fat for storage through a process called lipolysis. So you're eating, but you're starving. And if the starvation goes on for too long, or the starvation is at a very serious or severe level, as in it's a lot of starvation, meaning the cells are not getting anything because you're eating just a lot of carbs. And again, I'm saying carbs, I'm not saying sugar. When I say sugar, I mean blood sugar, glucose. All carbs get converted to blood sugar. So as a body, put yourselves in the place of your body. As a body, if you're starving, but you're seeing all this potential energy, the glucose in your bloodstream, but you can't get at it, and you're just starving, what are you going to do? This body has learned over millions of years to survive. This body is a survivor. It knows what to do to survive, which is why we're sitting here, which is why I'm sitting here, you're there watching this thing. It didn't happen by fluke, and it has learned to deal with certain things in certain ways. To give you an example, when you get a fever, our normal reaction is, well, I got a fever, so let me take the fever down. I'll take a paracetamol, or whatever you do normally to get your fever down. The fever, the body gave you this fever. The body's not stupid. Let's say we go from that perspective. The body's not stupid. Why would it raise the body temperature if it was such a bad thing? Maybe it's trying to do something by raising the temperature. Now, the body's not really talking to you. The body's not giving you signs in that sense. Like, hey, I've got something wrong with me. I'm going to raise the temperature. So this human, the brain, me, is going to recognize there's a problem with my body. No, it does it all by itself. It has no reason to be talking to you or trying to give you signs. Now, you can recognize the signs, but that's not what it's doing. So it's not saying, hey, I'm going to raise the temperature. So the person, the brain, will respond and do something about it, maybe take a paracetamol. That's not what it's doing. It has learned over years and years and years that when it raises the body temperature, it can kill off bacteria. Now, most bacteria will just die with high temperatures, and it's going to keep that temperature elevated till the bacteria that's causing the infection, if you will, the sickness, is gone. That's how it kills off infections. So if you were to take a pill to reduce your body temperature, effectively you're killing the solution. That makes sense. Okay. So as a body, I'll tell you what the body does. It's starving. It sees a lot of potential energy in the bloodstream by way of glucose. And what it does is it changes certain cells to be able to consume this glucose that's in the bloodstream without the need for insulin. It's a process, it's a fermentation process. Basically, it's a very primitive way of converting glucose to energy. By primitive, I mean is single cellular organisms from that perspective, as in we've evolved from there. So we basically, the body goes back to its primitive being and says, well, I remember we used to do this, eons ago. So let's convert some of these cells and kind of get them to start fermenting the glucose for energy. And the energy that the cells, these tumor cells, produce is in the form of lactate. Lactate is a form of energy, and you might recognize the word lactate. You probably heard lactic acid. This happens when you go to the gym, let's say after a long break, and you kind of start off where you left off, and then you just do your regular workout, and next thing you know, your body's in aches and pains. That's because the strenuous exercise you just did, the body had no option but to produce lactate to support the exercise, but then you stopped. So the lactic acid is still around your muscles, not being consumed for energy, and that produces the pain. Lactate is sort of the precursor to that. So these tumor cells produce lactate for energy, and this lactate is distributed across the body for all cells to feed themselves off of lactate. All cells in our body can just feed off of lactate. They don't need any mutation or modification. They just can do it. All cells in our body can, except for tumor cells. So when I say all cells, I'm talking about the normal cells, the happy cells, can use glucose for energy, can use fats for energy, or ketones really. Ketones are produced from fats. The liver will take the fats and convert them to ketone bodies, and then the cells can use ketone bodies to produce energy, and they can use lactic acid. So effectively, these tumor cells, if you want to look at it from that perspective, tumor cells are taking on the responsibility of going through this modification. Now they're getting damaged. These tumor cells, the cells that are converting themselves over to be able to ferment glucose for energy, are actually essentially getting damaged. So they can't keep doing it. And so the body has to keep producing them, these tumor cells, so that they can continue to produce energy, effectively sacrificing themselves for that part of the body for the greater good of the entire body. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, the new study done by Thomas Seyfried, by new I mean from 2012, 2013 or so, is a clear indication that cancer is not a genetic disease, it is a metabolic disease. And it doesn't matter what you think about this video, that is a fact. Cancer is a metabolic disease. So the takeaway, if you don't even want to finish this video, is if it's metabolic, it is based purely by the food you eat. It is not genetic. And certainly you can say there's environmental effects, to cancer. There's these carcinogens and those carcinogens. What you put directly into your body is way worse than what kind of comes, through the environment, quantity-wise as well as the proximity. So you have the power to change your diet to cure your cancer. The fact that it is a metabolic disease implies it is in your hands. You can change your food, the way you eat, the foods you eat, to cure yourself of cancer. And many, many people have done that. And Thomas Seyfried's research has shown that the ketogenic diet can cure cancer, any cancer. Because there's a certain idea behind the metabolic aspect of cancer. It's a mitochondrial dysfunction. Mitochondria are the powerhouses within our cells. So every cell can have one or more, in fact, quite a few mitochondria. Each of these mitochondria take that sugar and convert it to energy. The fitter you are, as in the more exercise you do, the more mitochondria you have per cell, giving you more energy. Like, so if you're sitting around like couch potato, or have been doing that for a while, then the number of mitochondria you have in your cells is diminished, but you can increase them by doing workouts again or going to the gym, stuff like that. It's a mitochondrial dysfunction, meaning the mitochondria they've been damaged with the sugar that you're feeding your body. By sugar I mean carbohydrates. The mitochondria is effectively getting damaged through another process, through the glucose oxidation process that produces byproduct. It's like When you have a gasoline engine, the byproduct of that gasoline engine, even though the gasoline engine is giving you, energy, the byproduct is carbon monoxide. So when our mitochondria are converting sugar for energy, oxidizing energy, sugar for energy, the byproduct is ROS, reactive oxygen species. This is a huge amount of oxidative stress intracellularly. Over a period of time, doing this over and over every day, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day for 20, 30, 40 years, it ends up damaging the mitochondria. The mitochondria is no longer able to function. So that's the dysfunction. As a result, the body is starving as well. So you can't take the sugar you're eating, and it's not able to produce the energy from sugar anyways because the mitochondria have been damaged. What's the fix? Well, as I said before, every cell in our body can extract energy from ketones, glucose, and lactic acid. If you eat a high fat diet and a very, very, very low carb diet, then the body will not have glucose in the bloodstream, and it'll be a very small amount. Two things are going to happen from this. One, your cells are not fat resistant, so they can, or ketone resistant. So the ketones can enter the cells, and the ketones will actually fix the cells as well, because ketones have this effect of healing. A lot of the good genes get turned on when you're in a state of nutritional ketosis. These genes most of them are antioxidant producing genes that just go around healing the body, and also intracellularly as well as extracellularly. And eventually the mitochondria are repaired and they can start producing energy from ketones. At the same time, because you don't have a whole lot of sugar in your bloodstream, glucose, the cancer tumors, not only do they not get the glucose, but they don't have the need. Now, there's two mindsets here. Some people say the ketones destroy the cancer tumors, or some people say you're starving your cancer from glucose because you're feeding yourself fat. I don't believe either of those is the right. That's not really what's happening. What's happening is really you're feeding your body. If you feed your body fats, the body's not starving, and the body has no need to have these powerhouses, the tumors, that produce energy from glucose directly by fermentation. So the body then is being fed. Every cell is just getting ketones directly from the bloodstream. And the need for these tumor cells diminishes, and the tumor cells, eventually the body says, okay, I'm done with this, I can just get rid of these tumor cells. And it does. And many, many people have experienced this. And Thomas Seyfried's research has actually shown that. Now, let's look at it from the perspective again, or continue to look at it from the perspective I'm coming from, which is cancer is the solution to the problem. The problem is not cancer. I hope that makes sense. The cancer is not the problem. It is the solution. What's the problem? Right. You're starving because you're eating carbohydrates, because you're insulin resistant. That's the problem. That's the root cause. And cancer is the solution. Now, I'm not saying that the cancer, when the body's trying to circumvent it, a certain issue, it's expecting it to be temporary, not a permanent thing. Like when you have a fever, you don't live for the rest of your life with a fever. The body expects to solve the problem and then get back to normal. Unfortunately for us, with the way we eat, most of us, a high carb diet and many times a day, never giving the body a rest, cancer is not something that can come and go unless you make a drastic change. The body can't just fix it. You have to help the body fix it by changing your diet. Now, let's see what the standard practice for cancer therapy is. There are only 3 legal, and I'm saying legal, recognized/legal. A doctor is not allowed to suggest any other treatment for cancer other than these 3 things, which is chemo, radiation, and surgery. I don't know the details of this, but this is what I've read and this is what I've heard as well. So you will not get this suggestion from a doctor, because they can't. They're not allowed to. They can get into legal trouble for suggesting that you try and cure your cancer with diet. Now, maybe some rules have changed, or maybe there's some loopholes around this, but that's unfortunate. I think this like with everything else, I think our society is more driven with the money that that one can make. So in this case, the pharmaceutical industry is probably established these laws with the help of their politicking. Either ways, you can, if you want, you can go find a doctor that can help you with this sort of thing by changing your diet. These are typically called functional medicine doctors. These are doctors who decide they want to use diet to cure people rather than medication, or at least diet first and medication as an assistance or a secondary treatment. You can do it yourself. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a nutritionist, so I've said this many times before, and I do my own reading. I've been doing this for so many years. But I find this idea is very interesting, which is why I'm making this video, because I know many years ago I had a situation where a friend of mine father had cancer, and this person is still alive. So it was shocking. At the same time, by shocking, I mean it was like I couldn't believe it actually worked. I'd read a lot about it. I'd seen a lot of videos on YouTube, but I just wasn't sure. I'm not saying I'm 100% sure now either, but after Thomas Seyfried's research, I'm pretty confident that, and he says very clearly, cancer is a metabolic issue. It's not a genetic issue. It's a mitochondrial dysfunction problem. Essentially, the body's not able to produce enough energy. I don't know. It can't. It's damaged the mitochondria. And you're constantly eating sugar. So by carbohydrates, I mean sugar. So now the regular treatment, going back to the regular treatment, the doctors will, let's say they use chemo. Chemo is just a toxin. Chemo just kills everything. And they're hoping it also kills the cancer, but it damages pretty much every aspect of every part of your body. They just hope that you'll be able to recover from it. But let's say through surgery or targeted radiation, you get rid of this tumor. Again, think of it from the body's perspective. You came up with a solution, let's call it a stopgap solution. You produced this tumor to feed the body. All the cells are being fed. It was a stopgap solution, hoping that this human that's running the body will change their diet, but they don't. And then somebody comes along and just wipes out the tumor. Either removes it through surgery or blasts it off through radiation or chemo, whatever the case may be. As a body, what do you think you're going to do? Well, what happens is the cancer metastasizes, which is it just spreads instantly, literally. The body panics. It had the solution, and it was growing this tumor, making it bigger and bigger to feed more and more of the body, and then whoop, it's gone. At that point, the body just is in panic mode, and cancer just pops up everywhere. And this is what happens with people who go through the regular treatment, chemo, radiation, surgery, etc. Thomas Seyfried, if I'm not mistaken, and you can confirm this, Thomas Seyfried dedicated his book to all those who have suffered and died because of chemo, radiation, and surgery. That's a very powerful statement. Of course, this was many years ago, and the field has progressed, and there's a lot of research that has proved not only his point but many other people's case, and it's a very established fact now that cancer is metabolic. But heck, it took us 100 years to recognize that scurvy can be easily treated by an orange or something. The sailors that were going across the seas in those days were dying of scurvy, and they were dying of scurvy because there were lack of vitamin C. And somebody had suggested that through his own trials, that looks like an orange can actually, you don't need to die, you can just take an orange. And nobody believed it. It took us 100 years to finally accept that. The same thing with sterilization. Women used to die at childbirth, and a doctor suggested that maybe before going in for the childbirth, the doctor should, clean up the hands. They used to actually work on cadavers, dead bodies. And then they just come back and, start taking, doing the delivery with the same hands and everything else. And they never thought anything of it. And when somebody suggested they should wash their hands and sterilize their stuff, they said, "Oh, that's nonsense." How many women and children died because of that ignorance? So the need to not want to be learning something new, right? So our humans just take a long time to make a change. So if you're holding out for your doctor to suggest some new treatment, it's not going to happen until the laws change. At least in the US, I don't know about the rest of the world. The laws are very clear. You cannot treat cancer, you cannot suggest or recommend cancer unless it's either chemo, radiation, or surgery. If you take it in your own hands, certainly you can do something about it. So anyway, I hope this video has been an eye-opener, allowing you to think from a different perspective. The next video I think I'll make on high blood pressure. That's another common ailment. Again, the precursor to that video will also be insulin resistance. So if you haven't watched that, please watch that as well. Understand that, because I said that's the beginning of the end. And I'm hoping this video would inspire those of you who are either suffering yourselves or know someone to try and convince them to move to a keto diet. Now, before I end this thing, I'd just like to say that the keto diet is, if you're doing this for cancer or other ailments they're trying to fix, like epilepsy and or Alzheimer's and things, it's a very, very strict keto, right? It's mainly meats, fish, and eggs. That's it. And the fatty stuff, so fatty meats and fatty fish and of course the yolk of the eggs as well, and coconut oil and ghee or clarified butter. You start adding milk products and grain products to this thing, saying it's still keto, that's not going to work. So when I'm saying keto is the solution to cancer, or fasting, right? You can do a water fast. Thomas Seyfried has also seen that water fasts work beautifully. They're actually more effective than even doing a keto, because the body's just totally starving and the body has no option to utilize the fat for energy, and so there's no sugar in your blood. And that's a very good way to do this. But if you're looking at a diet, please be very, very careful as to where you read and who you follow or who you listen to with regards to keto. Nutritional ketosis is certainly an idea and a concept that needs to be tested through these meters for ketones. But also, if you're using it as a cure for something, the diet, then you can't say I'm on a keto diet and start having milk products and grain products and a whole host of other things. The simplest thing is actually carnivore, right? It's basically you're eating meats and fatty meats, no other fat. You're not cooking in something else. You're cooking in the meat's own fat or in ghee or coconut oil, clarified butter or coconut oil, and that's it. You can have some leafy green vegetables if you must, but essentially the carnivore diet is kind of the way to go. And it's also a ketogenic diet. But I'll hopefully make a video especially on ketogenic diets, because there's a dime a dozen and variations to the theme and all this sort of thing. And a lot of people get misled, and then a lot of people will say, I did the keto diet but it didn't work, and it's like, well, you weren't on a ketogenic diet to start with. It's unfortunate, but that's the world we live in, with YouTube and Google telling us everything we need to know and confirming all the biases we have, right? We go looking for the things we believe in, and then we say, well, see, I thought so. Another topic, another video. Okay, I hope this was informative and helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.